From the WATE.com Digital Center, answering your legal questions, this is Ask Isaacs. Now, here's Lori Tucker and attorney Greg Isaacs.
And hello, everyone. Bo Williams in for Lori Tucker today, joined as always by Greg Isaacs. Greg, great to see you.
Bo, good to be here.
We're going to talk about Mark Sanchez, one of those cases that's been front and center. A lot of people following this, obviously a former NFL quarterback, now working as a broadcast analyst or was. Let's get up to date on what's going on as far as this case. And Greg, there's a lot of questions we want to ask you, but we do have a story that kind of walks you through where we are up to now. So let's take a look at that first to kind of get a lay of the land.
According to court records, the fight took place right here in this alley as the victim was backed into a loading dock doing his job. Although the involvement of a former NFL QB sparked a political debate about the safety of downtown Indy, the police chief insists Mark Sanchez's fame will not change how they investigate the case.
Just after midnight, early Saturday morning, a stabbing in downtown Indy made national headlines. Former NFL QB Mark Sanchez staggered away and was hospitalized after prosecutors claim he attacked a 69-year-old man who was working to pick up restaurant grease and had parked his work truck in an alley.
This was a situation that did not need to occur. We are literally talking about people fighting over a parking space.
Prosecutors claim Sanchez assaulted the victim, who had a huge cut on his left cheek. The victim insisted he stabbed Sanchez in self-defense. The severity of the injuries led prosecutors to amend the battery charge against Sanchez from a misdemeanor to a level 5 felony.
I don't care who you are. I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care where you live. If you come into our city, commit violence, tools at our disposal to hold you accountable.
Despite the high-profile nature of this case, which was all caught on surveillance camera in this alley, IMPD's chief says citywide crime numbers are down by double digits so far this year.
Downtown Indianapolis remains a safe and welcoming environment for the people that live here and the people that visit here.
On Sunday, Prosecutor Mears took to X and criticized Governor Mike Braun for exploiting the violence for political gain. That post was the first by the prosecutor since December 2022. The governor acknowledged deleting his initial tweet, but wished that Mears keep being safe.
Where I think my frustration sometimes comes from is everybody's quick to blame and point fingers. We need substantive responses that actually address the challenges that we're facing and give everybody the tools and resources that they need to be successful.
Finally, a judge did grant a defense request to waive Tuesday's initial hearing and set a pretrial conference for November. In the meantime, Sanchez has pleaded not guilty.
Okay, so that kind of recaps where things stand right now. There have been more developments moving forward in this, but first, Greg, I do want to ask you, and I know you were just kind of looking over the affidavit here that our station in Indianapolis was able to gain access to. What kind of things are standing out to you when you look at this, look at the developments, look at what's been brought forth, when you look at the affidavit? What jumps out at you at this point?
Bo, there are a lot of questions that remain unanswered. And if you're the Sanchez defense team, you know, you're scratching your head as to the nature of the charges. Initially, Sanchez, former NFL quarterback, Fox News analyst, was charged with 3 misdemeanor offenses, simple assaults and public intoxication, etc. And after an investigation, after Sanchez was interviewed, after the video footage was obtained by Indianapolis police or Indiana police, and the driver was interviewed, they were bumped up to felony aggravated assault. And Bo, that really upped the ante in this criminal prosecution. Similar to Tennessee, if you're convicted of aggravated assault, you could do up to 6 years in an Indiana penitentiary.
Wow. We heard from the prosecutor there, too. He was talking about there's a lot of challenges in this case, regardless of, you know, both sides that you look at here. I mean, what kind of challenges are they looking at?
Well, here's it. If I'm the defense lawyer, I'm going to say the only thing is challenging is for you to keep your mouth closed because everybody is presumed innocent. And, you know, it seems like the governor, everybody suddenly just piles on because it's Mark Sanchez involved in an alley fight behind a bar. So, you know, that to me would be very unnerving. But let's kind of break down the facts and look at what legal issues might be forthcoming. So we obtained, as you said, from one of our sister stations, the affidavit for probable cause. That's the narrative that they say supports the offenses that Sanchez is charged with. And in there, it sets forth this story that there's an alleyway behind a bar, Lomauer's Pub and Eatery in Washington Street. And Sanchez, you can see in videos, kind of comes stumbling down the street. And then it just gets really murky to me legally on how this all went down. So, he looks like he's unsteady on his feet. He encounters the 69-year-old driver of a truck that was going to unload commercial cooking grease. The driver of the truck says Sanchez approached him, smelled of alcohol, then told him to leave, that they didn't want the grease or oil delivered. And the public statements by law enforcement talk about fighting over a parking space. Well, from the video footage, it doesn't appear that Sanchez was driving anywhere. He's walking aimlessly up and down an alley for 11 minutes. So then the story gets more bizarre as it unfolds in this affidavit. The truck driver says that Sanchez goes into his vehicle. So now let's stop right there.
Okay.
Legally significant. Once someone enters your home, if we use Tennessee law, or a vehicle, you have the right to use deadly force.
Okay, so to
It's
defend yourself.
The Castle
Okay.
Doctrine. So anyhow, the altercation starts there. Truck driver says they get out of the truck. Sanchez attacks him. The issue now becomes, if you're Sanchez's legal team, clearly the truck driver was justified in using self-defense to protect himself against the apparently intoxicated Sanchez. So Indiana, like Tennessee law, requires a reasonable response. So you're only allowed to use that degree of force that's propelled against you. You, for example, you can only use deadly force if you are in imminent fear
of your life,
serious
right?
bodily injury or death.
Yeah.
Well, in this case, Sanchez, attacks the 69-year-old man. They wind up outside. He slings him against the truck. He's down on the ground. And after being pepper sprayed, Sanchez, according to the probable cause affidavit, undeterred, continues to move forward. So now the question becomes, if you're the Sanchez defense team, what level of force can the 69-year-old truck driver use? And apparently he grabbed a knife, stabbed Sanchez numerous times in the stomach, and then Sanchez stumbled off. So during the altercation, apparently, and this is another unclear mystery to this very bizarre story, suffered a severe gash to his face, a laceration. It's unclear if that was done by Sanchez's fist, if Sanchez had somehow got control of the knife for a moment. But because of those injuries, prosecutors ramped this up from a misdemeanor to a felony, and just a very bizarre story that unfolded in Indianapolis.
Yeah, and it's one of those too. Like you've already mentioned, there is video of Sanchez. You see him walking, but there's this hole. And I guess that's where the mystery is, right? It's he said against what he says. As far as how this actually played out, and that is what the defense team, the prosecutors, everybody needs to try to sit down and figure out how did this play. I guess it's more for the prosecutors to kind of prove this is what exactly happened, right?
Well, think about this. Is it reasonable if somebody is intoxicated and they come and they grab you and throw you out of your truck to get a knife and stab them multiple times? When I first started reading this story as it broke, I thought the truck driver was going to be charged.
Yeah. And could the truck driver still be charged here at some point?
In theory. So, but the other thing, if I'm these defense lawyers, I am going to file a motion to gag these prosecutors, gag these politicians. I am going to really hit hit the streets. One of the videos depicts Sanchez interacting with another passerby. I'm going to have my investigators try to interview that person. But to me, Bo, there is a gap in this story.
Yeah, there's this huge hole that just needs to be filled in, it seems like.
Well, the 38-year-old quarterback seems like he lost a knife fight to a 69-year-old truck driver.
Right.
And he's the one that got charged. So that's if I'm the lawyers, I'm going to break this down frame by frame, step by step, and I'm going to ask the question: was that reasonable force against intoxicated Mark Sanchez? You know, right now the defense team and the police are combing every bar in Indianapolis he was at. They are getting those credit card receipts. They are getting videos from that bar. So this is going to be a slow drip as this unfolds. I bet you have bars right now in Indianapolis talking to TMZ, seeing how much they can get for their footage of Sanchez drinking at the bar. And then what you're also going to do, if you're the defense team, you're going to run the record of this truck driver.
Yeah.
Does he have a propensity for violence? Is he just the sweetest, nicest 69-year-old grease driver?
So
truck
obviously
driver
history can come into play here too,
Yeah,
right?
so
Backgrounds.
a lot of interesting issues in a very bizarre story.
Yeah. All right. We have a lot more to talk about here. We want to take a quick break here. We're going to come back in just a second. We'll have more of our conversation with Greg Isaacs in just a moment. And welcome back. Bo Williams again, and for Lori Tucker, joined by Greg Isaacs. We're talking about the Mark Sanchez case. A development here recently, just over the last day or two, the judge that was going to rule in this case, oversee everything, has now recused herself. So now we have a new judge. So kind of walk us through what transpired here.
Well, generally when a judge recuses him or herself, it's because they have a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
And so that typically means that you have been in litigation with one of the parties, you've had a personal relationship with one of the parties. So people, it remains to be seen how this judge would have a conflict. And it may be with one of, maybe it's not Sanchez that is the basis for the conflict. Maybe it's the truck driver.
Sure.
But that was done.
Yeah, because that hasn't been made clear yet.
Under seal, and there's a new judge.
And that's changed some of the dates now. It's kind of changed how this is going to play out here.
And I like it how the public, the view from Google Earth, they'll pick one case a judge or a lawyer has had, and then it defines who they are. And the judge that recused herself was categorized as a lenient judge.
Okay.
In a case. So now he has a judge that's perceived to be more stern and strict. But that judge has moved the date from November 5th up to October 22nd. He has given Sanchez, who resides out of state, permission to appear via Zoom for the hearing. But, it's going to be interesting because we're just at the very beginning how this case is going to be played out in Indiana courts.
Like you said, it's going to be a slow drip on how this one plays out. I want to ask you a question, though, and this is more kind of a general question. In the lawsuit that the truck driver is filing, he mentions Sanchez, but he also mentions Sanchez's employer, Fox. In general here, I mean, how does an employer come into play on something that obviously he was not calling a game, he was not in the booth, anything like that? Are they just kind of just say, well, let's throw it out there and let's see if something sticks? Or where are they going with this as far as that lawsuit?
That's remarkable because a civil lawsuit was filed in around 24 hours. And we also gleaned more facts from the civil lawsuit. And they not only named Sanchez, but they named his employer.
Right.
And typically to have liability by an employer, you have to show that the employee was acting in the scope of their employment when the act happened. For example, if they're driving a company vehicle.
Gotcha. Okay.
If it's during working hours. So I don't know that a allegedly intoxicated Mark Sanchez, who was there apparently to broadcast an NFL game, would be acting within the scope of his employment. I think you're just saying to make a statement and go after somebody that's a deep pocket. There may be something different about Indiana law. I just know under Tennessee law, federal law, it would be a jump to try to bring in your employer. I mean, imagine this. If every employer in America got sued every time one of their employees got in a bar fight in an alley, the courts would be shut down and just be...
So really, the prosecutors would have to prove, or whoever would have to prove something, or the civil lawyers would have to prove in this, the fact that Sanchez, while all this happened, and whether or not he was drunk or what have you, happened on company time. I guess that's where they were going. So maybe he was in between
of their
something.
employment.
Right. Okay.
And you'd also, one would think is, and I have not read the civil lawsuit, but have to show that he had an issue with alcohol or a propensity for violence or aberrant behavior. But the first thing you do, like if I'm the criminal defense lawyer representing Sanchez, when I see that civil lawsuit, I tell the civil defense team, you need to file a motion to stay. That means put it on hold, because I ain't letting my client make any statements under oath because he's going to exercise his Fifth Amendment privilege. So that case, even though it's filed, is probably going to stay right where it is until this criminal case is resolved.
Are these tough because you are dealing with someone who is obviously a very well-known individual?
Absolutely. And the other thing that you want to do, you look at little things, and I as a defense lawyer, you want to get a lot of little kernels of good things. It's kind of like a coral reef. A dead plant in the ocean can't sink a battleship, but over time, a coral reef sure as heck can. So you want to keep looking for little positive things that you can build on. And, the first thing I'm doing if I'm in a criminal trial is say, now, Mr. Toll, let me see, it took you 24 hours to find a lawyer, file a lawsuit, and tell me how much money you're asking for. I mean, so those are things, if you're a prosecutor, you don't like to see,
Raises
because
an
the
eyebrow.
optic is bad.
Yeah. You mentioned the individual that Sanchez was seeing, the bystander or whoever that he crossed paths with. Who's looking for that person
Both sides.
harder? I know both
sides.
sides, but I guess, but is one side trying to find him first? I mean, who's...
It's a foot race, and sometimes in cases, you wind up finding somebody at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll never forget years ago, I was at a house, and there were some bank robbery suspects there, and the FBI just walked out, and they had a gym sock full of stolen money from the bank. And I said, guys, I guess I'm too late. So, you're going to have both sides beating the pavement, boots on the ground, but you're going to know, again, it's going to be a slow drip, every bar Sanchez was on. And it's also interesting because they got his phone.
Right.
So phones aren't good. The other thing that's going to be a battle within a battle within a battle is, so he went to the hospital. Sanchez was just released a few hours, a few days ago, then the police, I guarantee you, are going to issue a subpoena ducis tecum wanting those blood results, and also to determine if there were any other substances in that toxicology aside from alcohol that may explain this very bizarre behavior that the videos depict of Sanchez kind of bouncing down that alley.
Yeah. All right. We need to take another quick break here. We got more questions for Greg, so make sure to keep it tuned right here. We'll be right back. And again, welcome back. We're joined by Greg Isaacs as we are talking about the Mark Sanchez case. And we kind of want to broaden this for a moment, Greg, because it does come up from time to time, and that is current and former professional athletes. Is this more common than we think? Are we seeing a rise in athletes, former athletes, getting in some type of trouble? Because it seems like that we do hear more and more about that these days.
Well,
and I'm not trying to say all athletes are, but it does seem like we are seeing a certain number.
It appears that way just because high-profile cases garner
Right.
athletes, actors, politicians
Sure.
garner a lot of attention. But actually, the numbers are relatively low, Bo.
Okay.
From 2018 to 2025, there was basically 2.45%, 2.5% of NFL players that got arrested.
Yeah.
So not a lot, but when they do get arrested, I mean, they're typically whoppers. I mean, we had the Hernandez case.
Yeah, they made into
the
a
star
movie.
Player, for the Patriots involved in a double homicide.
Right.
No one can forget O.J. Simpson, the
Yep.
Juice.
Ray Caruth, another one. Yeah.
Ray Lewis
Yeah.
got in a bar fight. He eventually, his charges were reduced and dropped. Testified against, he's represented by a good friend of mine, Don Samuel, in Atlanta. He testified against his buddies. Didn't do a very good job by the state because the buddies were acquitted of a stabbing in an alley. The professional sport that has the most arrest is NBA basketball.
Okay.
And those typically are domestic related. So, it's unfortunate, but really, if you think about it, only less than 3%. That means 97% of these players are
Right.
upstanding citizens and don't get in trouble.
And like you said, because they are high profile, we hear about it. But obviously, there's so many more cases out there that don't involve high profile individuals. It just seems like it. But again, those numbers are very, very low.
And we talk about on this segment that you really, what has changed the landscape is smart cameras, phones, and whatever. And, Sanchez here is on national TV, very recognizable, a quarterback for over 10 years in the NFL. He's walking down a back alley in Indianapolis, not realizing that he's on video. There's also video from cell phones from bystanders. So, the most powerful weapon in the courtroom often isn't your prosecutor, your defense lawyer, your expert. It's your smartphone. And so it's really remarkable to me that some of these people that have such a tremendous profile will engage in conduct and pretend that they're cloaked in invisibility or anonymity. Very unfortunate, but this is a bizarre case.
There's one side or other.
But there are some gaps, and this is a case that I think you can defend, and I'll be interesting to see how those gaps are filled in.
So does defense have the edge in this one, so to speak?
Remember, the state's got to prove
they've got to prove, right?
Every element beyond a reasonable doubt. In the Sanchez case, whether it's Mark Sanchez, whether it's Bo Williams, Greg Isaacs, we never have to prove our innocence. The state has that very heavy, lofty burden to prove each and every element beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the law in every country, every courtroom throughout this country. But you know, can you bring a knife fight to a fist fight with a drunken football player? That's the question.
That's the question. Let me ask you this, because we have about a minute and a half left to go here. You talked about some past cases, right? And we say it's a very small number, but can the prosecution somehow tie something like that in and make some type of connection, saying, well, these athletes, we've seen something like this before in the past, or is that nothing that they can pull from to bring in that
I think
question
what
to the
ethically
jury?
They could do without it being improper or inflammatory argument is talk about how virile, athletic, and strong and powerful a 38-year-old ex-NFL quarterback would be when he is going up against a 69-year-old truck driver. I mean, Sanchez 38, he's 69. I mean, 30 years plus his senior. So that may be the thing that tips the scale that you're allowed to use that level of force. And the other thing, if I'm a prosecutor, he kind of didn't just start out with a knife. He pepper sprayed Sanchez, and he was oblivious to it. It didn't work.
Right.
So then he sought, pulled out a knife. But very bizarre, unfortunate case unfolding in Indianapolis, Indiana.
And like you said, it may still take some time before we finally get to the end of this one. So be patient. We'll continue to keep you up to date, Greg. As always, great to have you here.
Good to be here.
All right. Thank you for joining us.